Actually, you've answered some of my questions, but I just didn't want to sort of, I just wanted to make the point that while we all agree that a huge amount of regulation is needed, I mean, fair regulation that incentivizes good behavior and doesn't punish, all that kind of stuff, I think it is very important to point out that a lot of these problems that we're talking about, not so much, if you like, electoral interference and the big issues, but a lot of this is just an incredible lack of trust in institutional established thinking. And it's my experience with young people who, and I have a lot of interchange with them through my work. I'm a freelance journalist, but they really don't, they understand antitrust, but they're not so concerned about it. When they look at cryptocurrencies, when they look at how the young generation is trying to circumvent these very established elites, especially political and business and financial elites who seem to be gaming, if you like, the political process for their own leverage, there is a massive distrust. And so therefore they welcome some of this technology. They welcome some of the blurring of ethical lines because they genuinely feel that they want to remove middlemen. And I think that you can't take away from that lack of trust that really started to embed itself in the last 10, 20 years. And while Biden understands, the need to come together on what we mean by representative democracy today, and we should have these new summits on what we mean by that, I think we really have to understand that we're not, that trust is bigger than just what you're trying to do, where you're coming from. These are really, really important discussions. But I think that you're not going to have the next generation on board the way you would like them to be on board. They look at Facebook and they understand what Facebook is about, and they kind of use it as a professional tool, the people I know. So they're not, they don't get flooded by all the wrongs and the wrongdoing of Facebook. They use it very professionally. Those people who are very susceptible to clickbait are usually older people. Younger people use Facebook and Instagram as very professional tools, as ways to increase their own economic opportunities in systems that they feel are not working for them. And all that technology, that social media technology does is maximize the distrust. So it's almost, I'm trying to sort of just give you an idea that if we're going to, of course, all this regulation has to happen. And of course, the EU, we have very different ideas of what antitrust means in the States compared to the EU. And we have to find a way of finding some sort of consensus there to be able to build on. But you have to bring young people on board with you. And at the moment, it's almost like we have to put our own houses in order in terms of the way we govern and reestablishing that kind of trust. So that's just what I wanted to say. You have answered other questions on regulation and such, but you all know this. We can either be ethical hackers or white hat hackers, or we can just be normal everyday hackers, and we will circumvent whatever gets put out there as regulation. And so again, my urging is to understand how we reconnect with young people who really need, they don't need establishment thinking. They're not on our side right now. I agree with a lot of what you say, but I know younger people whom I know are not that concerned about our concerns that are huge. Whether it's cybercrime, et cetera, et cetera. So that was just my 2 pennies worth. Thanks.
Thank you, Tricia. Maybe Christos, you want to come in on this?
I don't have much to add. I would just like to say something that when we talk about trust, it's a huge discussion. Okay, so gaining the trust of the young people, of the young generation, this is a huge discussion. And I would also like to say that in my view, I completely agree with Tricia's point that traditional institutions have lost a lot of the trust towards that the community might have had in the past. And this is a very important issue for the functioning of democracy in general. But I truly believe that the way to win back the trust or gain the trust of the younger generations is not exclusively through the social media. So obviously you have to see all of the institutions perform much more effectively in public life, and of course I do include the governments in that, and politicians. So when you have politicians that are what is the word? I'm forgetting my English. That are less responsible, are ineffective, or I can find other words as well to add. They will not be able to convince the general public. I do use all of the social media, and I do use it in the way that you do mean, Trisha, as a tool, as a tool in order to communicate my work to many of my constituents and to the citizens. So I do use it professionally, but I do want to say that my main communication tool is not through the social media. And although it is supplementary and extremely important, the way to gain back the trust is not only, especially of the younger generation, is not only through the social media. So it is important, but I wouldn't necessarily stress that by making good use of the social media, you will gain the trust of the younger generation. One final point, I partly disagree with what you said. I truly believe that older aged people, older generations, are much less affected by fake news on the social media than the younger generations. I really believe that it is much easier for a younger person that perhaps has not worked that much, has not had that much experience, might be more likely to be affected by just reading 2 lines that he passed through in his timeline or her timeline in the social media, and try to make something of something that might be at least inaccurate. But in any case, it's not an issue of age in this case. It's an issue of how all of the countries can find an effective way in order to deal with it. And taking Peter's point before, I completely agree with Damon. I don't think nationalization would be the answer to such an issue. I think it's completely out of the question. What you need is a clear playing field, something which is very well explained. And if you play against the rules, you must have specific consequences.